Welcome, Briot.
Ryan, good to see you. Mm.
Yes, as you can see, I've got out a little bit, so I'm in. I'm outside. I'm so happy I'm outside, and there's a squirrel here that I'm feeding, and some geese and some rabbits. So I feel a little bit closer to nature and a little less cabin fever. How are you doing?
Doing okay. We've got about 1 week left of the scheduled lockdown here in India. So
Yes.
we're doing fine, I think, under the circumstances.
What's the date today?
The day today is the 8th, 8th April.
Today's the 8th.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's full moon today.
Okay. It's what today?
Full moon.
Full moon. Oh, is the pink moon tonight?
Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to remember to go look at that. Good, thanks for reminding me. I will definitely be outside to see that. Okay, so in today's podcast, we discussed as a theme is talking about healing, and what kinds of possible healing can you expect if you're on a transformational, spiritual, um, transcendental journey, what kind of healing you can expect. So, and I'm thinking mostly emotionally and as opposed to physically.
Mm.
What are your starting thoughts on that? How important is healing, and how does it fit into the journey?
Oh, part of the healing is to let go of the things that you are not and embracing the things you are. But part of that letting go process is also coming to terms with certain things you've accumulated, in your identity, so to speak, and events, particularly traumatic events. So I think the emotional feelings that awakening and the subsequent spiritual pursuit, it can range from anything from absolute terror to feeling very elated and quite blissful.
Um, I missed so it can go from absolute terror to what? Could you repeat that last part again?
Absolute terror to being very feelings of elation and bliss.
Aha, on the journey. I get it. The thing that came up for me that I want to acknowledge is that the absolute terror is, speaks for itself, is that, dealing with trauma and upset and fear. But I want to underline is that the low level anxiety and disappointment that people walk around with every day, and that it's so normalized, it's so their everyday experience that um, if you ask them how they were, they would say they're fine, and they would believe it. Is that they're because they're able to manage their normal way of being. This I am fine, and just being able to acknowledge that most everybody walks around with a level of anxiety and disappointment or upset. It's all really quite low level, and so much so, and so much in the background that people think that they're fine.
Mm.
Until you actually start looking and they're going, well, yeah, that's going on, but that's always going on.
Yeah.
People are even somewhat distanced from even knowing how low their energy is or how low their possibility is. What could you say? Anything that you need to or you want to remark about that?
A lot of people feel that it's okay to be okay. And as long as you're
Yeah.
just okay with being okay, then nothing's going to change. But if you say that actually it's not okay to just be okay, at that point, then something will happen. You're going to make something happen and something is going to change. So for me, it's not okay.
Ah,
Okay, I want to be fantastic. I want to be absolutely great. I want to be, and then a number of, great positive adjectives you can insert there. That's what I want to be. I don't want to just be okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing you're pointing to is intention. is if you don't have an intention to improve your situation, then it's not going to change. You know, we've reached a normal in our lives, our individual lives, and that if you don't have an intention for more, then why would anything change, and why would you do anything different?
Exactly.
So I think that's quite useful to
Yeah.
look at, is intention. The other thing is that the first thing I think people say is, well, you got to be realistic. You know, you're not going to be fantastic all the time. You're not going to be elated all the time. You're not going to be, um, overjoyed all the time. And my answer is that, well, no, you're not going to be. But it's like, I would like to have more of it, and I'd certainly like to raise my average. I'd really like to raise my daily average of how much joy I have in my life, and really being able to look at, like, what you'd have to look at is, what are the levers and dials? What are the cause and effect? What is it that I'm dealing with to be able to raise my energy, to be able to raise the amount of joy that I have in life? And does that bring anything up for you?
Yeah, it does. That we are content with living with this mixture of things, and this that what you said, that you should be realistic. This is how the world works. You got to roll with the punches. This is also something which was said to me a lot, and it never really satisfied me, because I'm a bit of an idealist, and I always question, why should I have to suffer? Why does it have to be there? Why can I just not enjoy and have a good time? And these are reasonable questions, and people are just saying this is not how life works. You just have to accept it as it is. But that wasn't good enough for me, and I think that was also a big fire which drove me on my spiritual pursuit for the majority of my
Ah,
life. And one nice analogy that I've heard is that, like in this material world, like the creation is made to facilitate all the perverted desires that the souls have in this universe. Like if you want to lord it over other people, you get an opportunity to do so. But it's also designed to help you realize that none of these things will actually satisfy you. That's another hidden purpose behind creation. And
ah,
analogy of having an ice cream that's got sand in it is very appropriate. Where you're eating this ice cream and it's the best soft serve you've ever had, but it's got some sand in it. So it tastes great, but there's this crunch, crunch, crunch going on as well, right? And then, but so now, if you just say, no, just eat it, it tastes good, just tolerate the crunching. Now, some people might be able to do that, but for me, I will be like, well, if there is such a thing as this taste, can't I have this taste without the crunch of the sand? Why can't I just have an ice cream without the sand in it? And this is somebody who's actually thoughtful and spiritually kind of, inquisitive. They'll ask something like that. And indeed, the enjoyment found in this world indicates that enjoyment exists. That in the spiritual source, that is where it's found. Ultimately, we know, but it indicates that it exists. But the suffering we experience also indicates that there's something wrong. There's something that needs your attention. And as long as we're
yes.
okay with being okay, then we ignore that part of the equation, that suffering, the discomfort. But as soon as we turn to it and we address these low-level, unpleasant feelings, then we can actually also start making progress. That's a bit of a
Oh,
mouth.
yes. Just as a little, we've both been on our spiritual path for some time, and so the question that I have for you, just to shed some light on that, our intention was that we wanted to have more joy in our life. I wanted to understand,
Yes.
I wanted to understand who I am and what makes the world run, which has its own level of satisfaction, but also just having more pure joy in my life by doing some new things and not doing some old things. Um, Without getting into the details of what we did, do you have more joy in your life today, and increasingly, than when you started? So are you successful on your journey?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
And the same with myself is that I have a lot more joy in my life. There's things that I've cut out completely, and really the key to it has been what I've made things mean. My automatic meaning for when people act a particular way, look at the things that one is reactive to, the things that shouldn't be happening, the things I'm not accepting about myself and about the world. And that when you get a different understanding, when you get a transformational spiritual understanding of these things, all of a sudden my values changed. The
Yes.
meanings that I put the meanings that I put to my actions and other people's actions and feelings, and I changed, and I was released from traps that I didn't even know there, to be able to have a fuller experience, a more acceptance is really quite huge.
Yeah.
Accepting who I am, accepting my human condition, and accepting how the world works and who people are, is so um, relieving,
Mm.
and being able, and there's so much joy that you can get just from that, let alone what I've intended and what I've been changing.
Mm.
Does that bring anything up for you?
It does. I really like how you are talking about how your value systems have changed. And what I've been
Mm-hmm.
thinking about also is that generally when people would hear of this, okay, you're going to experience more joy and things like that, usually what comes up in one's mind is that you're equating more joy with certain feelings that you will feel, specifically emotions that feel good, and that you're feeling less feelings that feel bad, which is actually not the case. What happens is that your definition of what joy is changes. Your definition
Also true.
of what real enjoyment is, that changes. And what real enjoyment
Yeah.
is, bliss, it's not necessarily a feeling. It's something much more deeper than that. And that you can even be in a situation of extreme discomfort and pain, but at the same time feeling absolute bliss. And I think just one great example for my opinion is that when they say that Jesus was suffering on the cross, I don't believe that he actually suffered. He must have felt physical pain, but because his consciousness was in an enlightened state, and he was not attached to the body, that he actually was feeling bliss because his meditation on God was complete. So here,
For example, yes.
yeah, and I think we can quote many examples from different cultures of instances where there were saintly personalities that experienced bliss in severe adverse conditions. So that means feeling or your emotion does not equate to a spiritual experience necessarily. They can be part of that, but that does not tell you that if you're feeling bad, that means you're not on a spiritual path, which in certain spiritual groups, they think like that, which is an error.
Now,
So back to
the part,
complete is that the value system has to change. What your definition of enjoyment and bliss, that changes, not necessarily the physical circumstances of your life.
yes, because you can, I'll give an example as well, which is on the other end of the continuum, is that just me having self-knowledge of knowing what my true nature is, and being able to ground myself, and there's a little bit of elation, there's a little bit of joy in being able to align with who you truly are. You can feel that alignment. You can't make it up. It's something that is an experience, is that you ground into yourself, you ground into all that is. There's a much deeper experience to self, and I can, and there's a joy in that. Um, there's something that really feels fruitful in that. At the same time, I can still be feeling not good. I can have a cold. I might not be pleased with some of my experience or what my feelings are, but it matters significantly less.
Yes.
All of it matters. Life changes just with that knowingness and alignment with who I am, makes my experiences and my day-to-day sensory experiences less important,
Hmm.
and to varying degrees of what's occurring and what I still am attached to. but that's on the other end of the continuum, is that, you know, when I have more of a transcendental or experiential connection and alignment with self and all that is, there's joy in that, and it affects everything. Does that
Yes.
bring in anything?
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you're making. I really appreciate that.
Okay, so more. Go ahead.
No, that's it. Go on.
So, in regards to healing, what else can we say about, you know, being able? Like, I do want to bring up that this time now is this has never happened in mankind. There's a lot of different energy out there. There's I think our world is very malleable right now, and that we can shape, will be able to shape our world and how our world works and how our world runs, that could be a little bit more aligned with who people are. I think that this time lends itself perfectly to being able to start examining the kind of world that we want. Regardless, is that the words that I would put up to it is that what is constant and what is the same is the nature is the same. How the planet is operating and what the trees are doing and what the grass is doing and what the rabbits are doing and the stars and the universe and the galaxy is doing exactly what it was doing beforehand. The only thing that is really changing is the made up faux reality that society is created,
Hmm.
and based on what our thought processes have been to date. That is the only thing shaking and crumbling and changing, and, you know, having people be scared. And that I say disconnect from, you know, our happiness, our safety, our security gets rattled when our world changes, and that it's really just society, which is completely made up. Our economy is completely made up of what's valuable and what's not valuable. And frankly, it doesn't really work that well for everybody.
Yeah.
If, you know, don't waste a good crisis. We have a crisis right now. Let's actually use it to our benefit to be able to shape the world to the way that we want it. That's more aligned with what the people are, as opposed to what's been going on, you know, to date. Does that bring up anything about you about our created society and nature is exactly as it has been?
Yeah, it does. We oftentimes think that if it was like this, or this circumstance was like that, or if I had that thing, then it would be better. But what we find is wherever we go, we're still bringing our mind with us, and that thing is the problem. So you might have all these resources that you desire, but you're still going to have the exact same problems that you have right now. So those things have to be dealt with, and the healing
Yes.
is very much a process of dealing with that. And actually, it's a fact that as collectively we as a society do that, then as a natural consequence, the physical structure will change in accordance with that. And the current structure exists the way it exists because of our consciousness. It starts by consciousness first, and then it translates into mind and how it looks on that aspect, and then it translates into the physical reality. Did you get all of that?
Okay, there's a lot of that I missed. So that you were saying that our mind is the issue, and that there's, you know, which we should elaborate a little bit on that. And so that, and then you said there's a lot of things about society, except you broke up a little bit. Could you just paraphrase that for me?
So society is structured the way it is because of our consciousness currently. And instead of trying to put all our efforts in changing the physical structure of society and the world, we should direct our efforts more into changing our own individual consciousness. And that's up to the individual to do, and also to inspire others to do. And as a natural consequence, the physical reality will change according to that. But you cannot change the world by going out trying to change the world. It cannot, because it exists now because of the way our consciousness is. So the consciousness has to change. That's where it happens.
Yes. Perfect example is the total sum of our collective consciousness is reflected in the society that we have today. And as if each one of us as an individual starts doing the work that we need to do to be able to maybe believe a little bit more in abundance and a little bit less in lack. That there's something wrong with me and there's something wrong with the world, and that we cover all of that up, and that our world is based on lack. Our society is based on lack, that there's not enough. And therefore, where, there is enough. We can create society in a way, there's enough, like, there's not enough for, when you start looking at that 2/3 of the planet lives on less than $2 a day. And then there's something called trillionaires. There's just a really large imbalance, and it's a reflective in the imbalance in our collective understanding or conscious of how we see ourselves in the world. You're right. When we change our view of how we see ourselves, and that collectively that will be represented in how the world changes. So the best thing you can do for the world right now is start being self-reflective, and start actually looking at what your human condition, what is the mind, what is the negative bias, what is it that I believe, how can I believe in more abundance, and how can I have more joy in my life, and how can I believe more in me, how can I have more love for me. And those are the things that are going to have an impact on our collective whole, and how it's represented in our society.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so in the idea of keeping this as short as possible, do you have any last words in regards to our mind and the healing and the creation of a new society? Is there anything else that comes up for you?
Healing hurts, but that's also only because of the present accepted beliefs that what you're feeling is actually considered to be hurt. But once one has actually gone through it, you'll be able to go through it again without experiencing that hurt. So it's very much like our own mental constructs, which makes us think that we are suffering and hurting. Like a child is screaming because it doesn't want to bath, but it's actually not suffering. But when you grow up, you actually enjoy a bath quite a bit because you're more mature in your understanding going on, you have knowledge. So healing is a process, and you
let me
scratch open that scab to make it clean up properly.
So I have in the same vein, to be able to create a little bit of light, I'm going to ask you a question. And Briat, with your in regards to being hurt, is when you have a sense of your highest self, when you are your highest self, because it's always moving all over the place, or at least mine is. When you're experiencing your highest self, can that highest self be insulted?
Can it be insulted? No.
Yes. Can your higher self be insulted? Can I insult you?
No.
Are you going to take that on?
No.
Can your lower self be insulted? Can I speak when you're a lower energy? Can I insult you and that you're going to feel insulted and when you're your lower energies?
Most definitely.
So that's kind of what, my example of that is that when you're your higher self and that you know who you are, you wouldn't actually take on, if somebody called you whatever, if you're your higher self, it just doesn't ring true. And when we're our lowest energies, that people can only say things to us that we doubt. The only things that land are the things that we already have doubts about. If you don't have any doubts about yourself, none of that stuff lands. And let me give an example is that if I call you, a purple giraffe, you're not going to be hurt about that right now. And probably most people aren't. And they're going to go because they don't have any upset there. They don't have any fear about being a purple giraffe. But if I say to almost anybody, I say, okay, I think you're selfish, that lands, is because people have a doubt that they might be. And when you're your higher self, the higher that you go, the less of that stuff you have doubt about, so it doesn't land. And that's a really good example of how we can change the world and how the world would change. And also on the journey of healing and how it works is that also by changing the meanings of, you know, when you have a deeper experience of self and a higher self, that you're not doubting who you are. And therefore, there's a whole lot less you're going to take on board. Anything else you want to say?
No, I think you said it really nicely. It's about, we're at 20 minutes now, 21 minutes.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Yeah, that was
Thank you very much, Brielle.
a really good point.
Sorry for the, you know, missing you the last 2 days. I'm having internet troubles at home.
Yeah,
And so we'll try to get that sorted out. You know, getting people on the phone during quarantine is not easy. So here we are, and I'll make a plan for future days.
awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
I
also.
really do appreciate. I really appreciate spending time with you.
Yeah, Brian, likewise. See you tomorrow, hopefully, same time. Okay, Harimo. Bye.
Right.